Hey guys, Fourpaws here, bringing you a top lane guide for Elise. A lot of content is going to be covered, so here are some timestamps in case you're only interested in a specific part of the video. Elise is one of the strongest champions in the game at the moment, and this is reflected well in her top lane. Next patch, she's going to get some mana cost nerfs, however these won't weaken her too much, and will also combat this in her itemization. So moving on to her strengths. First of all, she has two forms to take advantage of, her human and spider form. In spider form, don't forget that you gain on-hit damage, resistances and movement speed, meaning you should be in this form during the majority of your trades. Also, abuse that free movement speed by using spider form to roam or when you're returning back to lane. Spider swarm itself is a nice addition to your kit, as the spiderlings you spawn will deal a nice bit of damage, meaning you can catch the foe off guard with a sudden burst of damage from Skittering Frenzy. Skittering Frenzy gives you and your spider forms an attack speed buff, and also some health from each auto attack during the duration. In your human form, Volatile Spiderlings, it's great for face checking brushes, AoE clearing waves, or just during a fight for that extra burst of damage. Your main damage output will come from Neurotoxin and Venomous Bite. Neurotoxin is your Q in human form that will deal a base damage on top of 8% of the target's current health. Mix this in with some ranged auto attacks in the early levels of the lane phase to put out some nice damage on the foe. Equally, in spider form, Venomous Bite also deals a base damage on top of 8% of the target's missing health, so obviously use this to finish the target at the end of a nuke combo. Thanks to having these two separate abilities that deal percentage damage, Elise can go to an AP Bruiser build that will later help you with your lane phase. Elise's utility comes from her E. In human form you have Cocoon, which will stun a single target for 1.5 seconds, which is great for engaging and escaping. Equally, Repel offers both a great chase and escape potential. However, in my opinion this ability is extremely strong, maybe to the point of being broken. You can use it to juke to enemy minions or champions, jungle minions, dodge skill shots, or even just use it as a 2-second Zhonya's. Just be careful of the really long cooldown of 26 seconds at level 1, and the fact that any damage over time spells such as Ignite will still tick whilst you're in the air. And a final strength is that itemization on Elise is extremely flexible. There is always an item that will fit your build and give you the resistance you are looking for. An example, picking up a Frozen Heart when the enemy laner and jungler both deal physical damage and are auto attack reliant. This will be covered in more depth in the itemization segment. As for weaknesses on Elise, there honestly are not too many things that will hinder you. Be careful of your mana issues, although I will talk about this later on. If you spam your Q for trades, you'll quickly go out of mana. As mentioned earlier, Rappel is a really strong ability but comes with a hefty cooldown, so understand that if you repel at the wrong time, you are available to be ganked or initiated upon by the enemy. And finally, if you fall behind as Elise, she's not the easiest champion to keep up with. She can farm under tower quite well, but she works best when she can bully her opponent. For lane matchups, again Elise excels. There is not a single hard counter against her. Your worst case scenario is either against a Yorick, Cho'Gath or Shen, but even these lanes will be fine. The only issue that these champions bring are that each of these champions have inbuilt sustain and can opt to go tanky. The difference in your playstyle will be that after their first major purchase, for example if they buy a Negatron cloak, you won't be able to pick them down anymore with your skill set, and you'll just find yourself in a farm lane, which isn't really that bad since Elise scales very well with items and you'll be able to farm that gold with ease. As for your lane phase against the rest of the top laners, you should have a relatively easy time as you can bully pretty much any champion that you please. Ensure you spam your Neurotoxin and auto attacks when you can and try to farm up, but again be careful of your mana pool. Since you technically have 7 abilities and you already start with a rank in your ultimate, you are going to be stronger than your opponent at level 3 as you will have double the cooldowns to rotate in comparison, unless they are Nidalee or Jace, but even then you should easily outtrade them. So what items should you buy as Elise? For your first purchase at the start of the game, I like to buy either a cloth armor with 4 health potions and 1 mana potion, or preferably 2 sight wards, 3 mana potions and 6 health potions, as this compensates for her mana issues, on top of having some wards to stop early ganks. This vision will help you be confident in zoning and poking the foe, as you will know when their jungler is near and when it's best not to trade. For how you should itemize Elise, there are many items that are optimal. However, you should choose in the game itself which items you build and in what order. Some core items are Sorc Boots, Leandre's Torment, Rylai's and Warmogs. However, it's not often that you'll stomp your lane so hard that you can just go for straight damage output and disregard grabbing resistances, so try to figure out what defensive items you should purchase by looking at the enemy top laner and then jungler. If they are going to inflict a lot of physical damage, choose from items such as Ninja Tabi, Frozen Heart, Zhonya's and Sunfire Cape, whilst if their damage type will be magical, then opt in for items such as Mercury Treads, Wit's End or Abyssal will be ideal. I find it's best to prioritise countering your enemy lane damage type and then build out into a general rounded build. For example, unless I was against a triple AD comp, I'd perhaps only pick up a Sunfire Cape for armor before going into core items. Then, later coming back for an Abyssal, look at the context of the game and itemize accordingly. This is an item that might be classed as cheese on Elise, however I think it's worth some testing and also a mention in this video. The item is Banner of Command. First of all, the item offers some nice general stats for you: ability power, armor, cooldown reduction. However, it gets interesting when you look at the unique passive Valor. This passive gives out free health regen and also increases nearby minion damage by 15%, which will affect your spider swarm. This means that when you later come to use Skittering Frenzy, your DPS will increase, whilst the healing you gain will also increase. Also, lastly, this item lets you promote a cannon minion, which is actually rather strong and can help you split push and then go roam with your team. I recommend you try it out at least once, but I don't think this item is in any way core on her, just an interesting and fun item to use. Now for Masteries on Elise, I'm a fan of 12, 14, 4. This is because you gain spell penetration for your toxin to deal more damage, the tanky resistances you need for your lane phase, and finally some mana regen and CDR on flash. Also, Elise's base AD is just about 50, which isn't very nice to last hit with, hence why I take the Butcher Mastery to aid with my CSing. If you're not very comfortable as Elise, going 21 in the defensive tree for a bit more tankiness is still fine. However, the mana regen in utility is really nice for spamming that neurotoxin. As for runes, I like to take magic pen marks, armor seals, ability power per level glyphs, and movement speed quintessences. However, if against an AP top laner, taking flat magic resistance glyphs instead is fine. I find movement speed quints on top of a movement speed bonus from a spider form extremely useful for roaming, chasing and escaping, but again it is personal preference, so feel free to rock your own rune setup if you disagree. Also, another option is taking hybrid pen marks, as your main poke as Elise is your auto attack neurotoxin combo, and in spider form you will also land a lot of auto attacks, but again find what suits you. And finally we move on to team fighting, ganking and some tips. So Elise's teamfight is actually very decent, as you will deal a nice amount of damage on top of being a huge damage soak thanks to your itemization. Remember to rotate your cooldowns as often as possible, but staying in spider form is priority for the extra resistances and auto attack damage. If you notice an enemy trying to escape and the situation allows you to do so, Rappel and Cocoon offer enough utility to lock down or keep up to a foe. A decent tip is just to make sure that your passive is stacked up before you start the fight, as the spiders can aid with more damage on top of soaking skill shots for your team. If you purchase a Rylized, you will find it easy to peel for your AD carry and AP carry, and you should be able to disrupt the enemy team as a whole. I don't recommend using Cocoon to start a team fight, as the ability is great for pinning down a squishy for a nuke mid-fight. However, in some scenarios landing a Cocoon might allow for a great opener in your favour, so look at the context and act accordingly. As for ganking, try to open up with Cocoon into neurotoxin and volatile spiderling, then hop into spider form and go to town on the target. Ideally, you will use Rappel when the target uses flash or escape ability so that you can keep up with them. However, in some scenarios, you'll have to open the gank with the Rappel. If that's the case, attempt to stun them with Cocoon after they've burnt their escapes. And finally, we come to some tips for Elise. First of all, Elise is extremely strong at tower diving and also preventing herself from being tower dived because of Rappel. When you tower dive someone, you can either use Rappel to finish them off or to drop tower aggro after finishing the kill. Whilst if you're being dived yourself, sitting out in Rappel will give your tower 2 seconds of free damage on the target. Don't forget about mixing Cocoon into these dives to help controlling the foe. Also, remember that Rappel can be used to jump to jungle minions if you need to juke an enemy whilst roaming in the forest. Another tip for Elise is that Spider Form's abilities cost no mana, so don't forget to use Venomous Bite to help with last hitting and Skittering Frenzy for a small heal if you will not need them to duel with in any time soon. You can use Volatile Spiderling to face check any brush as long as it's relatively close by, and also using Rappel at the right time will allow you to dodge Karthus' ultimate, Requiem. Elise is one of the best top lane bullies in the game at the moment and is extremely fun to play due to how many abilities you have at your disposal. Good luck playing her, and until next time, take care.